going to fall to earth and appear in plain sight on earth, just as the original 200 did. And around the same time, we're told in Revelation 9, this bottomless pit is going to be opened, and the 200 that are incarcerated there are going to be released. And this guy that we call the Antichrist, he is called, as I said, the beast from the abyss, and he ascends out of the abyss, or the bottomless pit. He goes on to become what we call the Antichrist. But 33 times in Revelation he's called the beast from the abyss. And the reason that he and his lieutenant, his sidekick, the false prophet, can deceive the whole world is with their counterfeit and magical signs, miracles, and wonders. And the reason they can do these counterfeit signs, miracles, and wonders is because they're spirit beings, not just human politicians.
And there's two of them?
Yes, there are two main personages prophesied both in the book of Revelation and in the Quran and other Islamic writings. In the Quran, their main man is called the Mahdi. And we're told that when this Mahdi arrives, we're told that as a young man several hundred years ago, of a boy of about 12 or 14, he went and hid down a well and hid himself. But in the last days, he's going to emerge out of the ground, and he's going to lead Islam in a series of victories over her enemies. And he will have a right-hand man, a lieutenant, a sidekick, who is Jesus Christ, according to Islamic prophecies. Whereas in the book of Revelation, we're told that this man is going to come. His name is Antichrist, which means anti means instead of, or in the stead of, or in the place of Christ. So this guy, according to Scripture, I believe when he comes, is going to proclaim that he is the true Christ. He's coming in the stead of. When the Messiah was here, when they asked him, what are the signs of the end times? The very first thing he said to them, he said, many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ. He didn't say many shall come in the Mahdi's name, saying, I am the Mahdi. He said they're going to come in my name, saying, I am the Messiah. So this is why anti means in the stead of, or in place of Christ. So when he comes along, I believe he's going to be saying, I am the Messiah. I am the true Jesus Christ. I wouldn't be surprised, George, if this guy's got holes in his hands and if he turns water into wine as one of his
interesting
his deceptions.
You think people can be that tricked, Patrick?
Well, they can, because you see, this is going to happen to an earth when to the world when after the apocalypse begins and after what's called the gathering together of the church, which is over in America they call this the rapture. Paul calls it the gathering together. So that the Christians are taken out of here. Say there's 500 million Christians, they're gone. There's 5.5 billion people on earth who are basically body and soul people, what Paul referred to as the natural man, people of body and soul but no spirit. So, as the Messiah said, I come in my Father's name and you reject me. If another shall come in his own name, him you will accept. So just as the world rejected the true Messiah and murdered him, crucified him when he was here 2,000 years ago, in the same way when this guy shows up, everybody's going to accept him as the true Messiah and take him on board. And at the same time, I believe this other guy, the false prophet, is going to rise up in the east. He's described as a lamb with two horns. I think this guy is the Mahdi, and he's going to be in control of the Muslims over there. And there's going to be a little bit of contention between these two guys in the beginning, I believe. When
does the clock tick, Patrick, or is it ticking now?
The clock is very nearly at midnight.
Really? Okay.
Well, I believe it is, but then by the same token, George, you know, back in the mid-90s, I thought that we'd be gone out of here by the year 2000, and we're still here. So no man knows the hour of the day. All we know are the signs of the times, and we're told generally about the signs: wars, famines, earthquakes, diseases, immorality, lawlessness. Of course, the Jews are back in Israel as the biggest one. But everything is hotting up just as you can see it, and as anybody can see this, George. So we're very, very close. I believe we're on the cusp of it.
Well, you may know. Is it a good thing that we're very close, or is it a bad thing?
Well, it's a very good thing for people like me, but it's a very, very bad thing for people who are not Christians. Because what is coming on the earth, George, is a horrific, horrific, horrible time. It's going to be hell on earth, literally, because all these guys, all these beings are going to be manifest on the earth. When they leave their spiritual dimension, this parallel universe, which the Bible calls heaven, and fall to earth, they lose some of their spiritual abilities, and I believe they're going to become manifest. And that's why we're seeing a lot of things happening on the earth at the moment to prepare people. For instance, There's a woman in the UN called Mazlan Othman, and she is the UN diplomat for aliens, and her office is called the Office for Outer Space Affairs.
Isn't that something?
Right. Then we have the Pope's astronomer. You've probably heard of him too, Dr. Guy Consolmagno.
Yep.
And he says that, oh, yes, there are aliens out there, but that they're very benign, and their creator was the same God that created us, and we should be friendly with them. And when these aliens arise, he is willing to baptize these aliens if they want to be baptized. Now, listen to this, something I learned recently. In schools in Britain, British school children are being trained in UFO crash drills.
No way.
I'm serious. They're getting in the local bobby. They get in the school teachers and they bring the kids out and they give them drills as to what they should do should a UFO happen to crash in the schoolyard.
Well, that tells me they know something, Patrick.
Of course they know. Now listen to this.
Hold on for a second, Patrick. We've already hit the break. We're going to come back with you in just a moment. Our special guest tonight for the next hour and a half now, Patrick Heron. He's live from Ireland, of course. And I shall be right back on Coast to Coast AM. His website, by the way, it's over there linked up at coasttocoastam.com. And we're with Patrick Heron. Patrick, tell me a little bit more about these UFO drills.
Well, as I was saying to you, I have a list of things that I've noticed recently which I believe is prepping the world and conditioning subliminally the vast majority of people on earth who are not Christian people and who will not be able to discern these things as to what's coming down in the near future. We were coming back from New Zealand after Christmas, George, myself, my wife, and my third daughter. And as we walked from the airplane into Heathrow Airport, they had these posters on the wall all the way in, about 3 feet by 4 feet. And these posters, they weren't of Buckingham Palace or the Thames or Windsor Castle. It was a picture of the iconic alien head, the oval-shaped alien head that we see with the oval eyes.
Right.
And one word was written across the top of it, knowledge. That was it. And when I walked in with my wife and kid, I stopped and I said, look at this. This is unbelievable. Now, somebody would have to plan this. Somebody would have to sanction this.
Sure.
Somebody from the top down would have to make sure that they were there for some particular reason. Just as you said, you know, Mazlan Othman, the UN diplomat for aliens in the Office for Outer Space Affairs. Then we have an advert that's on the TV all over Europe at the moment. I don't think you have it over there. It's for a deodorant. And it shows beautiful-looking angels falling out of the sky and falling on the ground in full view of everyone. And these are beautiful-looking women with gorgeous wings on their back, which look very, very realistic. And the interesting thing about that is, George, that there's only one mention of female angels in the Bible, and that's in Zechariah 5, and we're told that they have wings. Then you go to another ad that's on the television over here at the moment in Europe for Vodafone, which is a huge, big mobile phone operation. And this ad is on the television where they have this guy sitting down with a suit and a tie on him talking about Vodafone, and he's got 2 little horns on his head and pointy ears. And there's absolutely no reference to the fact that this fella has horns or pointy ears. So what is this trying to tell us? Then we have the latest Katy Perry video for her song called E.T. And again, this shows her floating around up in the sky. It's about an alien falling to Earth. Then we see in the alien where, and the lyrics are just unbelievable when you listen to the lyrics. Then she seems to be having some sort of relations with this alien, and in between her kissing him, there's all these flashes of animals having sexual relations. And then when the camera pulls back at the end of it, she's got the legs of what looks like a deer or a goat, and he's naked, and they turn and walk away. Then we have at the moment all the governments over the last year or so opening up their UFO files, which have been secret for decades, and making them available to everybody and saying, yes, there are UFOs, you know. So the point is that the world is being prepared for the reappearance of these guys on Earth. And by the way, that links the advert for the deodorant showing the fallen angels and the Katy Perry video. Both of those are on my splash page on my website if people want to go and see them. But then we have, when it talks about this great city in Revelation that's going to be a great powerful city where these Antichrist, the beast from the abyss, and his fallen angel comrades are going to rule from in the future. When it talks about this place, it's called Babylon the Great, and it says, Babylon the Great has fallen, and has become the habitation of devils, and the hole of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. We're told that in Revelation 18. And this coincides with Isaiah 13, where it says, speaking about the same city in the future, but wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and the owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And in the Hebrew, that satyr is literally satyrs, which are half goat, half men with little horns. So when these guys arrive, I know that the original fallen angels, George, looked like beautiful-looking men, but we're also told in the book of Enoch that they can change their shape. And we know from looking at, for instance, temples in Egypt, where I was a number of years ago, when you look at the gods that were there, we had half men, half animals, half birds, like Horus, for instance, is the god with the head of a falcon and the body of a man. Thoth has the body of a man and the head of an ibis. Go to South America, you have a guy called Quetzalcoatl, who's a half man, half bird. And the same guy, I think, appears in Angkor Wat in the temples over that, a fellow called Garuda, again, man's body, bird's head. We have other such creatures in Egypt, such as Sobek, who had a crocodile head, or Num, who had a ram's head, or Anubis, who had the head of a jackal. And, of course, in Greek mythology, we have the centaur, who is a man in front and a horse behind, Minotaur, the head of a bull, Pan, half god, half man. So I wouldn't be surprised if these type people are going to show up again, besides just good-looking spirit beings. And this leads me to a very good story I heard from a young Christian man in a publishing house in Belfast a number of years ago, the same publishing house, actually, that's published this house in the United States. And he is married to a girl whose father is an old evangelical Christian minister for many, many, many years out around Indonesia and the islands out in the Far East. And a number of years ago, this man was telling me, this old preacher was in his office one night, and he was typing a letter on his computer to all his parishioners in the various islands, because there was a lot of occultic activity going on in that area, because they're into the dark arts out there very much. So he was typing this letter, and all of a sudden he got this peculiar smell. And after a while he pushed back and he looked over, and there was a young man sitting opposite him on the other side of his desk. Very attractive young man, about 30 years old, with beautiful long black hair, and he was wearing a shirt and a sari, a sort of a skirt of the native people, the men of the island at that time. And this man started remonstrating with the old preacher and telling him that these were his islands, and he wasn't to be preaching the Bible here, and he was to get out. With that, the old man opened his Bible and he started reading the scripture to him. And at this man jumped up. He got